In June 1924, George Mallory and Irvine set out to conquer Mount Everest, driven by the ambition to be the first humans to stand atop the world's highest peak. They never returned. The last sighting placed them 800 feet from the summit, but whether they reached it remains one of mountaineering's greatest mysteries. When Mallory's body was finally discovered in 1999, it opened more questions than answers. Did Mallory and Irvine achieve their dream, or did Everest take them before they could? Mallory's body lay face down on the mountain's north face. His fingers clawed into the snow, a rope tied around his waist, suggesting a fatal fall. Irvine's remains, however, have never been found. Crucially, the camera they carried, a Vest Pocket Kodak, or VPK, was missing. A small piece of equipment could hold the truth. A photograph capturing the pair on the summit, forever etching their names in history. Experts from Kodak speculated that if the camera were found, this film might still be salvageable, even after decades frozen in ice. But despite numerous expeditions, the camera has never resurfaced. There have been hints that the Chinese might know more about the missing camera and Irvine's fate than they're willing to admit. In 1975, a Chinese expedition claimed to have found a foreign climber's body at approximately 8,200 meters, the exact elevation where Irvine might be. One member of that team, a climber named Wang Hongbao, even mentioned this discovery to a Japanese colleague. Tragically, Wang died in an avalanche the next day, and his account never made it to the broader world. Decades later, author Mike Simon, who participated in a 2019 expedition to find Irvine, heard rumors that the Chinese had indeed discovered Irvine's body and the missing VPK camera, only to suppress the findings to preserve their narrative of being the first to summit Everest's north face in 1960. Could the Chinese government be hiding the greatest clue to Everest's most enduring mystery? A former British diplomat has claimed that in 1984, the Chinese climber Nimpan Duo admitted to having seen the body of Irvine during a 1975 expedition, and even suggested the body and camera had been recovered, though Chinese technicians supposedly botched the development of the film. When pressed, Chinese mountaineering authorities have either denied finding anything or remained frustratingly silent. In 2019, the mystery only got stranger. Using high-altitude brooms, Sinat's team scoured the terrain where Mallory's body had been discovered. They found nothing. Mallory's body, previously marked by GPS coordinates, was gone. Vanished, just like the VPK. This has led to even more speculation that the Chinese authorities removed Mallory's remains, perhaps to prevent further investigation. The Pangbocha hand. Hidden within the heights of the Himalayas, a relic existed that some thought could unlock one of the greatest cryptozoological mysteries of all time. For decades, a mummified hand that some believed belonged to the elusive Yeti was entombed in a small, weathered monastery perched on the slopes of Mount Everest. This relic, known as the Pangbocha hand, attracted adventurers, scientists, thieves, and even a famous actor, weaving its strange tale into the lore of one of the world's most mysterious creatures. The Panbucha Monastery, set in a remote village near the Everest base camp, was considered a sacred place, established by Lama Sangwa Dorjin in the 17th century. According to the monks, the Yeti was drawn to the Lama's spiritual energy and began offering him food and firewood as he meditated in a secluded cave. When the creature died one day, the Lama took its hand and scalp back to the monastery as sacred relics. These relics, guarded by the monks, were used during fertility rituals in the local village, and quickly became a source of fascination for outsiders in search of proof of the Yeti's existence. The first Westerner to become entwined with the hand's history was Peter Byrne, a seasoned adventurer on the trail of the mythical beast. Funded by Texas oil tycoon Tom Slick, Byrne arrived at Panbucha in 1958, hoping to catch a glimpse of the Yeti, or at the very least, some tangible evidence. What he found was stunning. A large mummified hand with leathery skin still clinging to bones. Despite the monks' insistence that removing the hand would bring disaster to the monastery, Byrne was not deterred. Slick and leading British primatologist William Osman Hill encouraged Byrne to procure a finger for scientific study, one way or another. So Byrne allegedly struck a deal. He offered a sizable donation to the monastery and promised to replace the missing finger with another. Returning to London, he secured a human finger from Hill, then smuggled it back into Nepal and attached it to the Yeti hand with wire. It wasn't long before Byrne was en route to India with the supposed Yeti finger, though with no plan to smuggle it out of the country. There, he had a chance encounter with legendary Hollywood actor Jimmy Stewart and his wife Gloria at a bar. After some convincing, the couple concealed the finger in Gloria's lingerie case, smuggling it into the United Kingdom without attracting the attention of customs officials. The finger, examined by Hill, was declared to be human, but doubts lingered. Decades later, in 1991, the entire Panbucha hand vanished from the monastery, possibly stolen by antiquity thieves, following an episode of Unsolved Mysteries that reignited interest in the relic. In 2011, DNA tests on fragments of the original finger, found in a London museum, offer a final, if unsatisfying, revelation. The bones belong to a human. The lost Soviet expedition. In the chill autumn of 1952, rumors began to spread through mountaineering circles. The Soviet Union had set its sights on Mount Everest, while the British and Swiss were locked in their own race to claim the world's highest peak. A new contender was allegedly emerging from the shadows of the Cold War. A team of 35 climbers, led by Dr. Pavel Dachnolian, was said to be assembling for a daring assault on Everest's icy crown. They had one extraordinary goal: to plant statues of Lenin and Stalin on the summit. Soviet newspapers had long dismissed mountaineering as a bourgeois pursuit, But times were changing. As the Iron Curtain fell across Europe, the Soviets looked to the mountains as a new frontier of political glory. Reports indicated that after a training expedition on Mount Lenin, the highest peak in the USSR, the team had been dispatched to the Himalayas, laden with innovative equipment. They were outfitted with self-heating clothes, special leather boots that promised to eliminate any danger of skidding, and an oxygen apparatus described as lighter than anything used before. All products of Soviet ingenuity, meant to outshine Western technology. By mid-October 1952, the expedition had reached the Tibetan side of Everest. From their base camp, they dismissed their Tibetan porters, insisting on pushing forward alone. According to scattered radio transmissions, the team had reached Camp 8 at 27,000 feet and was preparing for the final ascent. 2 days passed. Then, silence. As the year drew to a close, an 18-day search effort combed the mountainside, but no trace of the climbers was found. It seemed the mountain had swallowed them whole. When the Soviets returned in spring, their investigation yielded nothing. Back in Moscow, authorities were tight-lipped, and stories of the tragedy faded into the fog of state secrecy. Years later, Yevgeny Gripenrider, a respected Soviet mountaineer, set out to uncover the truth. He scoured archives, mountaineering journals, and interviewed anyone who might know the story behind the 1952 attempt. His search yielded nothing. No records, no photographs, not even the names of the climbers supposedly involved. It was as if the expedition had never existed. But in mountaineering lore, mysteries have a way of lingering. A passing comet from Tenzing Norgay, one of Everest's first conquerors, suggested that his uncle had seen Russians near the mountain in 1952. Still, no concrete proof has emerged, leaving the story unconfirmed. It would take another 30 years before Edward Myslowski and Vladimir Belyvertin finally placed the Soviet Union at the top of the world, becoming the first Russians to summit Everest in 1982. By then, the mystery of the 1952 mission had faded into legend, a compelling, unanswered question that continues to haunt mountaineering history. The kite balloons. In June 1933, Frank Smythe stood alone on Mount Everest's North Ridge, just shy of the summit, when something peculiar caught his eye. At 28,200 feet, every breath felt like an achievement. The English mountaineer, renowned for his daring exploits and fiery temperament, had chosen this grueling path toward the peak. But as he paused, squinting against the thin air, he saw something no climber before or since could adequately explain. Two strange dark objects hovering in the sky, pulsating as if they were alive. Smythe, known for his detailed observations and direct writing style, described the objects as resembling kite balloons, with one possessing a beak-like protrusion and the other squat wings. Despite the intense fatigue and oxygen deprivation, he conducted an experiment. He looked away, reciting the names of nearby peaks. Cho-Oyu, Yeocheon-kan, then back again. The objects hadn't moved, hanging in the sky, unaffected by the wind. He later noted that the pulsations were much slower than his own heartbeat, and their distinct, lifelike motion defied simple explanation. But what were they? An optical illusion born of the mountain's notorious hypoxia? Or something stranger? An alien mystery, tethered to Everest's icy heights. Frank Smythe was no novice climber, prone to flights of fancy. Born in 1900, he'd already secured a reputation as one of Britain's finest mountaineers, with multiple daring ascents in the Alps and Himalayas. He was also an accomplished author and botanist, his adventures brought to life in nearly 30 books. Smythe described the encounter in his book Camp 6, dismissing the notion that it was merely a hallucination caused by altitude sickness. Others, however, were less convinced. Mike Ward, the doctor on 1953 Everest expedition, attributed Smythe's vision to hypoxia. Yet Smythe had insisted until his final days that the objects, or perhaps creatures, were real. As he descended from Everest that fateful day, the strange objects vanished behind a sudden mist, disappearing as mysteriously as they had emerged. The footprint. It was the autumn of 1951, when a group of seasoned mountaineers, led by the legendary Eric Shipton, made their way through the barren snowscapes of the Everest region. It was a time before Everest had become the crowded destination of climbers and adventurers of today, when only the bold dared to tread its unforgiving slopes. This particular reconnaissance expedition, intended to survey potential routes for an eventual summit attempt, would soon be remembered for something altogether more mysterious. As the team descended through the Menlung Basin, Shipton and his companion, Dr. Michael Ward, stumbled upon a peculiar sight. Footprints in the snow. Not the typical tracks of an animal or man, but something altogether more strange. These prints, at an altitude of 15,000 feet, were unnerving. One footprint, captured in the now famous photograph beside Ward's boot, was nearly twice as wide as a human foot, with oddly misshapen toes, the big toe larger and lower than expected. Mountaineers, both experienced and sensible men, were baffled. Who or what could have left such a print in a place so desolate? Shipton quickly snapped several photos, using his ice axe and Ward's boot for scale. As they followed the tracks down the glacier for about a mile, the prints seemed to cross narrow crevasses, leaving behind claw-like impressions in the snow. The expedition camped for the night, still pondering the odd discovery. In the following days, more members of the team, including W.H. Murray and Tom Bourdillon, examined the prints. By then, the sun and wind had distorted them, but their unusual size and shape remained clear. Back in Britain, Unshipped photographs were published. Excitement spread. Cryptozoologists, monster hunters, and mountaineers were quick to claim that these prints were proof of the elusive Yeti, a creature long rumored to haunt the snowy peaks of the Himalayas, according to Sherpa legends. Michael Ward, a medical doctor by training, approached the mystery with skepticism. In a 1999 article for the Alpine Journal, Ward offered a more grounded theory. Perhaps, he suggested, the tracks had been left by a local inhabitant of the remote Ramsar Gorge, not far from where the prints were found. Ward had seen firsthand how Himalayan villagers could navigate snow barefoot. Their feet adapted to the cold through a condition known as cold-induced vasodilation. He even recalled seeing a Nepalese Highlander with severely deformed feet that could easily have produced the strange impression shipped and photographed. Over the years, the legend of the Yeti has persisted.